you didn't just happen to have some things go wrong here. You have an organization that just flat out can't do its job. Now, I'm not saying that all the guys and gals in the Secret Service are incompetent and nobody knows what it's not saying. As an organization, when you look at this, these guys, they can't perform. They are not performing. And that, of course, the where I went with that in terms of the conclusion, or we're extrapolating from that in the article, is guys, based on the what I know and the contacts I have with the intelligence community and a lot of work I'm doing with America First on planning for reforming the intel community, Secret Service is not an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
Secret Service is not somehow randomly they're catastrophically bad. No, this is what all of these agencies have devolved to. And some of it is DEI stuff. Okay, yeah, but it's not just that. It's a whole, it's just flat out bureaucratization. I mean, honestly, at the risk of sounding like a crusty old guy, going soft. I mean, when the director of Secret Service, who, I know she came to the job from Pepsi, but before that, she spent something like almost 30 years in the Secret
Mm-hmm.
Service, supposedly as an agent really doing the job. And her response to not putting people on the roof of the building from which the shot was taken was that it's a sloped roof and basically it's too dangerous to put somebody there. So that's insane. But she said it with a straight face to the camera, like that's her worldview. In
Yes.
her, as a supposed professional, getting on the roof is too dangerous for her people.
Sam,
And
I have to, if you pardon me, I just want to chime in because this is such an important point. And people will shake their heads like I was, like how is this possible? How could she possibly say such a thing? And we should. But I think that this is indicative of a much larger problem. And I'm sure this, you were hitting on this. In regards to this, I want to quote your article, just a piece of it. Whoever was running that show was responsible not just for assigning tasks, but also for confirming that they had been accomplished. There is no passing of the buck in the world of protective details. There are no assumption. The word should, quote unquote, is never used. You touched on that a minute ago, but I wanted to pull that out in a quote from your own article. But this relates specifically to the Director Sheetal's response in that interview. I was talking to a friend this morning about that response. As ludicrous as the response is itself, it goes beyond that. The first thing is, listen, I've been in the camera untold numbers of times, from officer all the way to chief. And of course, the higher up you go, the better prepared you better be for a particular question or sets of questions. And you would think the higher up you go, the more you'd be aware that you need to be prepared. In other words, this is my job to represent the agency. So, number one, it seems like when someone asked the obvious question, this lady had plenty of time. And the reason is because there was a slow response in the first place. She didn't come out within an hour like
right.
I think that I would have, or my boss would have expected that I would have. But she came out very late with the response. So you would think in that time, geez, what might they ask me? Why wasn't there an agent? Why wasn't there an officer on that roof? It seems like she wasn't prepared for such an obvious question.
Right.
And number two, and this is where this really concerns me. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this goes back to Sam's first article that I alluded to at the beginning of the show within in Primus. Please subscribe to Primus to get people like Sam that are writing common sense in there. But that was about the failures of the CIA, your old agency. And like you said a minute ago, this is endemic to the entire establishment.
Yes.
But number two, this is the leader. Number one, she wasn't prepared. Number two, this is the head, the director of the United States Secret Service, tasked with, among other things, protecting the president, vice president, former presidents, families, things like this. Heads of state from all over the world. She could not think on her feet
That's right.
quickly and clearly enough to give a more substantive answer a more logical answer or a more honest answer? How about, you know what? I should know the reason there wasn't a shooter there, and I don't. That's my fault for not knowing, but I'm going to find out and get back to you. She wasn't able to give a grown up answer to such an obvious question.
Right.
That's just my editorializing and about what this implies as far as her ability to lead such a vital organization.
Yeah, well, and she was in the Secret Service for again, I think it's like 28 years or something like that before she left and went to Pepsi and then came back to this job. I would really like to know, and I haven't had the opportunity, actually, the time to focus on this. I'd like to know what she did in the Secret Service for 20 years. Like, while she was in the Secret Service, was she actually on the street with the detail doing this? Was that where, or are we dealing with another person that maybe spent a little bit of time on the street and then very rapidly ended up spending the rest of her career sitting behind a desk? I mean, all the time. I mean, this is true in any profession, right? You've run into this yourself. Run into guys in the CIA who everybody wants to refer to as a spy and a spook, and you're like, yeah, I know him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did a tour in Vienna 30 years ago and drank a lot of wine and ate a lot of schnitzel. And then the rest of the time he's been sitting in headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
So don't talk to me about how he's knows anything about operations, doesn't know any. The I guess, coming back around is when you look at and it seems like every day now, right, there are more revelations. When you look at the way this went down, you just realize this was a clown show, but a really scary clown show. This is a disaster. What was it earlier today? Apparently there's information coming out that this kid roamed around multiple times in advance, which I wrote in, I think, the first piece I wrote about this. It's obvious. He didn't climb on the roof not knowing that the roof was unsecure. He didn't climb up there with his long gun hoping nobody was holding the roof. He knew that. How did he know that? Well, either they told him, which is a conspiracy theory, or you know what? They let this dude roam around in the middle of their setup, observing and gathering information. And the latest that come out is at one point he was carrying a rangefinder as
Yes.
he did that, and they actually noticed him and even photographed him.
Yeah. Well, you know what he did, Sam? This kid, this monster, this murderer, he did reconnaissance.
That's right.
He did the job that the Secret Service was responsible for in order to protect their principal, their protectee. He did reconnaissance.
Well, he did the pre-attack surveillance, right?
Yes.
And everybody who understands how this business works understands that while you're figuring out where you're going to put your snipers and where the command post is and doing all that stuff, you can't allow the enemy to have the opportunity to simply observe you, gather information. So you have to have people dedicated to watching for that surveillance and preventing them from doing what this unsophisticated, probably completely psycho 20-year-old did, which is just roam around and make book on everything you're doing to the point where he can say, hey, they haven't bothered to put anybody on that roof, and that looks like a good spot. I mean, we keep, this is the thing I think people really need to keep reminding themselves. That totally unsophisticated, untrained 20-year-old kid from Pennsylvania who it smells like had some serious emotional problem. This wasn't Al-Qaeda. This wasn't Hezbollah. This wasn't anybody. Good Lord, he went straight through these measures like they didn't exist. Now, you're going to seriously tell me that service, the Secret Service, will protect anybody from Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah or Hamas? Because those boys, against whom I have worked extensively, they're not stupid little 20-year-olds with no training. They're as hard as it comes and very sophisticated in all kinds of capabilities. Good God. I mean, at this point, I'm surprised that they could even secure the White House at this point, honestly.
Well, again, I've had conversations, I'm sure, as you have, with a number of people, and I came to the same, I think, quite obvious conclusion that, listen, I am thankful But after this, I'm surprised that we haven't had other incidents.
Yeah.
And apparently, maybe we have, according to some sources, a couple of weeks ago with the vice president. I'm not sure about that, but sometimes it's just pure stupid luck that something doesn't go wrong. That the bad person is not in the opportune location for something to occur.